I ended the first video with Einstein's biggest blunder. At least that's how he described his decision to conform to the accepted idea of a static universe when he put together the theory of general relativity. But who made him question himself like that? It was a Belgian priest called Georges Lemaître. In 1927, he published a scientific paper where he used Einstein's theory of general relativity to show that the universe had to be expanding. Since his paper was published in a small scientific publication in Belgium, few people read it. However, when Einstein found out about his hypothesis, he commented, "Your math is correct, but your physics is abominable." Then came Edwin Hubble, the American astronomer. In 1929, he noticed that galaxies were moving away from one another. The universe was indeed expanding, and the furthest galaxies moved away the fastest. But how could he tell in which direction they were traveling? He used the Doppler effect. The name comes from the Austrian physicist Christian Doppler, who suggested in 1842 that a wave becomes compressed or stretched depending on whether it is moving towards an observer or away from him. Another way to illustrate it is with sound. We all experience the Doppler shift, as it is also known, when we hear a car or an airplane moving towards us and away from us. As the object is getting nearer, the sound waves are compressed, causing a high pitch. As the car or the plane moves away from us, the waves are like a slinky that is being pulled. The waves become stretched and we hear a lower pitched noise. Since light is also a wave, the Doppler effect rule also applies. If a galaxy is moving towards us, the emitted light will shift towards the blue, a high-frequency color. If that same galaxy is moving away from us, there will be a red shift, and everywhere Hubble looked, he observed this red shift. Georges Lemaître was right. The picture to my right shows an example of redshift as seen through a spectroscope. An object refracted light always shows black lines. They are called absorption lines. In the left column, you see them as they appear when the spectroscope analyzes the sun's light. Next to it, you see the result when analyzing the light of a distant galaxy. Notice that the absorption lines are all shifted towards the red part of the spectrum. That's the red shift, and it indicates that the galaxy is moving away from us. But back to our story. In 1930, Arthur Eddington, who had found the first proof of Einstein's theory of general relativity, was enthused when he heard the news about Lemaître, and wrote in an article published in the monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society that the Belgian physicist's paper was a brilliant solution to the outstanding problems of cosmology. In 1931, Lemaître had come up with another conclusion he felt ready to present the world. But before I continue, let me give a word of warning to creationists. The logic here is very difficult to follow, so please pay close attention. Here we go. If the galaxies are constantly spreading out, they must have been closer yesterday than they are today, or the day before, or the week before, or the month, or the year, or the century. Well, you see where I'm going, or more precisely, where Lemaître was going. That same year, he spoke in Britain about the relationship between the physical universe and spirituality. This is when he first explained publicly that the universe had started by expanding from an initial point. He called it the primeval atom, and described this theory as a cosmic egg exploding at the moment of creation. He also referred to the day of the Big Bang as the day without yesterdays. By 1933, he was acclaimed in the press as the leader of the new cosmological physics, and Einstein had changed his mind about his abominable physics. In 1935, the two men did a series of seminars together. According to a newspaper report, after Lemaître explained his hypothesis, Einstein stood up, applauded, and said, "This is the most beautiful and satisfactory explanation of creation I have ever listened." On March 28, 1949, the British astronomer Sir Fred Hoyle explained Lemaître's cosmic egg in a different way for the listeners of a BBC radio show. He called it a Big Bang. Some people believe it was meant as a sarcastic insult because he didn't believe in Lemaître's theory. However, Hoyle always claimed that he called it that way because he wanted to better illustrate this explanation for the birth of the universe. It doesn't matter which interpretation is right. The name Big Bang was born and it stuck. There is another part of the Belgian story that I haven't discussed yet, and it is just as important as all the others. He said that a Big Bang had to be very hot, and as the universe expanded over the years, it became colder. According to the accepted theory, at first it was so hot that electrons, neutrons, and protons could not even fuse to form atoms, thus making the universe transparent. Then, 380,000 years later, it had finally cooled down to a temperature of 3,000 degrees Kelvin. That's 4,940 degrees Fahrenheit, or 2,727 degrees Celsius. Based on modern knowledge of nuclear physics, this is when atoms can form. It's at this point that the universe could finally be seen. As objects became cooler, their wavelength became longer. At one point, physicists theorized that the universe's size should have increased about 1,000-fold since the time it had become opaque. So, using the Doppler effect and the understanding that a wavelength becomes longer as the universe expands, the universe's temperature should have decreased over the ages. The 3,000 degrees Kelvin, when atoms first formed, should have become 3 degrees Kelvin after a 1,000-fold increase in size. Makes sense, right? 3,000 divided by 1,000 equals 3. We will stop this video now in order to prevent it from becoming too long. The final part will begin with the story of an unexpected discovery made by two scientists who knew nothing about cosmological physics. Thank you very much for watching this video. I would ask you to take a second to rate and add your comments. If you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to do so. There will be plenty of both interesting and funny stuff ahead.